Welcome to Life Happens, where Texans come to protect their legacy and prepare for the second half of life. Join your host, Attorney Kim Hegwood of Your Legacy Legal Care, and our weekly guest as we navigate the challenges that emerge as life happens. Now here's your host, Kim Hegwood.
Good morning and welcome to Life Happens with me, Kim Hegwood, and our very special guest today is Joanna Wyckoff, and she's with Top Flight Insurance. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, you got some good stuff today because we're going to talk about maximizing your federal benefits with insurance solutions. And so, because we're always looking to maximize everything except our weight. No weight.
And not our weight.
yeah, we're all talking about money today. And so we kind of want to get started on a topic I think that most people are not aware of. So we want to get that out in the open. We're going to talk about veterans benefits. So can you talk about the most underutilized veteran benefits and how they support aging veterans in their later years? Because I think this is one of those things where people don't get a lot of information. The VA doesn't tell you. So this would be a lot helpful for all our service people that served.
Yeah, so I'm a veteran myself. I served in the United States Air Force as an F-16 avionics troop, and I got injured at a very, thank you. Unfortunately, I got injured at a very young age. So at the age of 24, the Air Force handed me a blue retired ID card and told me I was going on temporary medical retirement at 24, and I had 10 days to leave the Air Force. And I was like, oh my God, what do I do? Like, what's the next step in my life? And I ended up just throwing a dart at the map and ended up in Atlanta, Georgia. And, you know, back then, there wasn't a whole lot of resources out there. I had to go to the VA and take my 1,000 pages of medical records myself and try to figure out what my disabilities were. Because, you know, the VA has a whole law, you know, and they give different percentages based off of different ailments, you know, and you don't know what you don't know. Like, I didn't claim half the stuff that I could have gotten paid for because I didn't think about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, do you have acid reflux? You're like, oh yeah, I do. You know, like, we only think about the big things in our life, right? And so I only filed for the big things in my life. I didn't file for everything that had happened. So I think the very first thing is a lot of veterans I've encountered. I have a Facebook group. It's veteran with the number 2 veteran info. We have over 750,000 veterans in this Facebook group.
Nice.
And what I see, yeah, it's a lot. My friend Yvonne built it. I'm an admin for her. And what I see daily is a lot of people have never even filed for benefits. They just get out because maybe they're healthy at 25, 26, and they go out and get on with their life. And then things happen. And they never think, oh, well, the ringing of my ears happened because I sat next to jet engines for 4 years, right? Or unfortunately, Kim, we're having aging veterans. Maybe they served in Vietnam and they're now coming up with cancers and stuff. Well, you know that a lot of the stuff that happened to people who served overseas in the Gulf War and the Vietnam War and many other things, they're happening because of things like Agent Orange. And a lot of people haven't applied for benefits, but there's presumptive benefits where you don't even have to have the medical records from 1960. You know, they know that you were over there because they have your service records. And a lot of it is called presumptive benefits. So I met a 90-year-old veteran. And he was still mobile and everything, but he had never filed for VA healthcare at all. And I was like, you know that you probably would get your prescriptions at least for a lower cost than Medicare through the VA. Because even if you're not disabled at all, if you have 0% rating, if you're like, they have priority groups. If you're one of the priority groups, you can get reduced prescriptions if it's not a service-connected disability. And the reduced prescriptions are oftentimes way cheaper than trying to get it on the Medicare market. Like, think about an expensive medication like Ozempic or Mounjaro for your diabetes. Like, the new law coming up for Medicare is going to cap it at $2,000. But what if you got it for $30? You know?
Yeah.
Or what if you got it for nothing because the VA is paying you for that, or you're over a certain percentage, you know? So I meet a lot of veterans in the community who are like, yeah, I don't go to the VA. I'm a veteran, but I don't go to the VA. I've never gone to the VA. I'm not going to go to the VA. I'm like, all right, you don't have to go to the VA, but at least utilize the benefits that reduce your out-of-pocket costs somewhere else. Like, I might not want the VA to do my next operation, but I'll let them send me my birth control for free. I'll let them send me my, maintenance medications for free and stuff like that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I'm all about free.
Me too. Especially with the inflation on everything has gone up. I mean, eggs have like tripled in price, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if I can help someone save money in one area, they can utilize that money somewhere else, right? But there's so many things that veterans don't file for. And Kim, if you file for benefits, it doesn't take away from my benefits. And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions with veterans is, my brother's a veteran, and I'm going to get really personal. He hasn't filed yet. My brother served 20 years in the New York National Guard, and he was at 9/11. He was at ground zero of 9/11. And as a young, I think he was 18 at the time, seeing horrific things, the aftermath of ground zero, picking up body parts. And he has trauma from that, right? And I said, Michael, why haven't you filed for your benefits yet? And he said, well, there's more deserving people than me. I didn't deploy. I didn't do this. There's more deserving people than me. I said, and that's one of the biggest misconceptions is you don't have to deploy or get injured in the line of duty to be deserving of healthcare, to be deserving of compensation for things that you've gone through and how your body has been changed, right? And I think that everybody should file, because you filing doesn't take away from me filing. It's not like the government runs out of money on, oh, well, Joanna filed, we're out of money, you can't get anything, Kim. That's not how it goes, And so I'm trying to encourage my brother now to file, because, he's been through a lot. And so that's just one aspect that the VA has. The VA has so many services that can help veterans find housing. They can have financial assistance for veterans who are affected by issues. Like they have HUD housing. One of the things that some people might encounter is maybe they were in a situation like me where they were like, you got 10 days to figure it out, bye. And,
Wow.
I was 24 with no savings on a E4 salary that didn't stretch very far,
No.
The only thing that saved me was my bank. Thank God USAA let me take a $5,000 loan, to hold me over until I had a job. But, they have resources in file, and they also have programs in file to help many people. Like if you are a caregiver, they actually have a VA aid and attendance program. You probably know about it, Kim, where if you have trouble mobilizing or bathing or dressing yourself, you can qualify for an aid and attendance where they pay a caregiver to help you take care of you, or they pay a relative to take care of you. Have you heard of that?
Yes. Yeah, in my elder law practice, we're very familiar with VA benefits, but so many of our listeners are not. And so, because there's pension, there's aid and attendance, and, and I tell clients all the time, there's money, it's free money. So if you can get it, go get it. You don't pay taxes on it, and you think about those veterans, like your brother who had to go through such horrible experiences. Because the military, 40 years ago is not the same military now and how they do things. So they didn't have all this great equipment and protection and things like that. So they had to endure way more than our soldiers today. And I'm not saying that our soldiers don't suffer a lot. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that back in, the, Vietnam and things like that, circumstances were different, so we encourage everyone to check out your benefits and what what you can get. So I'm right with you there. So how do you maximize how do you, when you're working with clients, maximize the whole Medicare, VA benefits in order to maximize, coverage and minimize stuff?
Obviously I want everybody to get every penny that they're due. So if they've never applied for VA healthcare, it's an easy application online that we can help do. But if they can qualify for something like prescriptions through the VA, then that reduces their out-of-pocket copays at CVS or Walgreens or Walmart, right? Especially if they have an expensive medication like those Mounjaros and Ozempics that are pretty pricey, So getting something for reduced or lower cost at the VA helps you save money on your Medicare. one of the things that helps people, all right, so a lot of people would be like, Joanna, I used to work for Social Security Administration for about 10 years. And unfortunately, a lot of veterans would come and be like, Joanna, I can go to the VA for free. I don't want this Medicare. I'm not going to pay for this Medicare. Do away with it. Don't want it. And I was like, you can go to the VA for free, and some VAs are great. But the thing is, the VA today that you experience might not be the VA when you're 85 years old, right? Like the VA has changed. I started using the VA in 2007. It's changed a lot to 2024. And it unfortunately changes with every budget, right? Every president, a lot of things change and the doctors change. So I might have a really good rapport with one doctor, and then another doctor might not care anything about and not spend 2 minutes with me, And I've unfortunately had a situation where I was at the VA hospital for 3 days and they took great care of me. And then I never got any follow-up tests. I never saw any specialist or anything. And I'm like, I just got lost in the system, right? Whereas if you keep your Medicare, you keep your options, you can use your Medicare to go any civilian doctor that takes Medicare in the United States, which is almost everybody. And you can usually see somebody, like if you were diagnosed or felt like you had COVID today, you could go use your Medicare to go see any doctor or any healthcare professional to get treatment today, unlike sitting at the VA in the ER for 10, 12 hours maybe, right? And so I encourage everybody to keep their Medicare Part A and B because you don't want to give up that and then try to get it later. Like one of the silly things that I wish Congress would do away with, Kim, if we can protest our congressman. VA eligibility is not credible for Part B, although it is for D. And I think that's a little silly, but it affects people when they get older, because if they refuse Part B when they become eligible, 65 or through disability, if they refuse it and they want it later, it's a 10% penalty for every year they refused it. So if you refuse it at 65 because you're using the VA, you like it and everything, and then you want it at 85 when you need to go to skilled nursing and have all these things and need surgeries and hip replacements, you don't want the VA to do it, it's going to be a 20-year penalty, which is 200% on top of the, what it is right now. So today it's 174 and we expect the new numbers to come out soon. And most people say, I can't afford 200% on top of the regular. And I'm like, yeah, it's crazy, right? So when you make these decisions, it's a lifelong effect, it's a domino effect. So whenever veterans I see on my Facebook group or, I say, keep your Medicare, especially your Part B, because you don't know how you're going to need it later, especially if you travel. Like I travel a lot. I'm tied to the Atlanta VA in Georgia, and I just moved to Texas. You think that they're in a rush to see me here in Texas? Or what happens if I get sick while I'm traveling to New York to see my dad, right? It's not like, it's not the easiest to use when you're not local to your home facility. So I always encourage people.
Just trying to park at the VA in Houston is horrendous. So
yeah,
just so you know, Joanna, if you're back in Houston at the VA again, they valet park veterans. So make sure you do that. And that's the only people. Otherwise, take an Uber because parking is atrocious at the Houston VA. So
that sounds like an all-day event.
Yes, it could be. So what are some common mistakes that seniors make when they're claiming their Social Security benefits? Is it just not wanting Part B? Is there more?
So there's a lot of misconception when people claim Social Security. So first, they think that they have to take it at 65 because we often associate 65 with retirement, but 65 is just your Medicare age. Your full retirement age is usually later. Right now, it's usually 60, 67, right? And if you're working over their early retirement threshold, you can't get all of your Social Security checks and work and make $100,000 a year, right?
Yeah.
And so you might become overpaid, or you might cut off your nose to spite your face, right? So I like to teach people about Social Security early. The more you know, the earlier you can plan, because you don't want to say, hey, I'm going to turn 65 and go give my boss the middle finger next week. And your rent is more than your Social Security check, right?
Yeah.
because that happens a lot, because a lot of people don't save for the rainy days or retirement. They think that Social Security is going to be here forever. And while we do still have a trust fund, they haven't realized how much their Social Security is not, especially with inflation. You know, we're getting cost of living adjustments, but it's not going up as much as milk and eggs is going up.
Yes, that is true.
Right? So the earliest you can file for regular retirement is at 62, but you're under an early retirement earnings cap, right? And if you're, let's say, so my mom, for example, my mom, she's going to let me talk about this. My mom was only making, like $12 an hour. You know, she's a CNA her entire life, and she was under the early retirement cap. And she thought she had to quit her job to draw her Social Security check. I said, no, Mom, your earnings are under the threshold, so you can actually still work and get your Social Security check and maybe catch up on some bills, pay up some stuff, right? And so it actually increased her quality of life because she was able to have both incomes. It was like getting a second job for her without having to do the extra work, right?
Yeah. For
And
my
so
mom, it was extra spending money.
Exactly. Go on a vacation finally, right?
Yeah, because she started collecting at 65 and she didn't retire for another 10 years. And so, yeah, so she was living high on the hog for a while. So.
And so there's a lot of people out there who say, well, Joanna, I can tell you exactly the day you should retire. And it's really complicated. You know, there's fancy softwares you can buy. Here's the thing. When you are thinking about retirement, you have to take in consideration not just your age, but your health and all aspects of your finances. Because if you aren't going to break even, many people, if they delay their retirement, we have to do what they call a break even test. Okay, for the years that you're not taking it, how much money are you not going to get, and how long is it going to take to recoup that money that you gave up, right? So if someone delays their retirement until 70, they're giving up access to those funds, and they might not break even until 84. Are you going to live until you're 84, Kim?
I hope so.
I don't have a crystal ball, right? But both of my grandparents died before I was born, you know? And so it's always about your health. How healthy are you, right? One of my friends, his dad delayed his retirement until age 70, and then he died before he could even file. And I wish he had called me because he knew he had health problems, and I would have told him, take your income now. And he was cutting off his nose to spite his face. They were living very frugally when he had access to the funds. Like, why cut off your nose to spite your face? You know, that's my whole thing is like, you have access to funds. What are you delaying it for? You know? So there's misconceptions like that. One of the misconceptions, Kim, and I encounter this a lot with people who have some assets or people who are making really good money. Nobody tells them how this policy called IRMA, income related monthly adjustment amount, is going to affect them when they make decisions at 63 that affect them at 65. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. So let's say you decide to take a very large distribution out of your retirement accounts at 63 and your adjusted gross is inflated. That is now going to affect your Medicare premiums when you go to file at 65 if you take Medicare at 65. And also filing your taxes, married filing separately, actually increases your Medicare premiums too. So like let's say you make 100,000 and your husband makes 300,000, you file separately, you jump up separate tiers. And I can show you the whole chart and everything. But married filing separately might not be the best advantage for Medicare. So you have to weigh in, is it a good tax benefit plus is it a good Medicare? You can't just look at one aspect of it. So you want your CPA to say, is this not just tax advantage, but also when I go to file for my Medicare, is it going to affect my Medicare too? And does one outweigh the other? Does that make sense? Definitely.
So let's talk about life insurance. How does life insurance play in estate planning for our seniors?
Yeah. When I was selling life insurance, we still sell life insurance. When I was brand new, so many people would tell me that they don't have any and they don't plan on getting any. And I said, okay, so what are your children going to do? And they'd be like, I don't know. They could throw me in the river. And it's the crazy things that people say. But, all right, so I have two parents that are 70. When, not if, but when the day comes, I get the phone call, and they live in New York and I live in Texas, I'm not only going to be grieving, but having to deal with their plans now, right? And that financial burden, I mean, not everybody's rich, right? And not everybody wants to use resources for one thing when they could have mitigated a risk, right? And insurance is all about mitigating a risk, right? So when I got my insurance license, the very first thing I did was I got myself covered, because I was like, holy crap, I'm walking around here with no insurance outside of my job. And the moment I lose my job or leave my job, poof, it goes away. And then my parents, if something happens to them, when it happens to them, when they go to heaven, I'm going to be the one financially responsible for finishing out their benefits and, closing up the houses, and not just the funeral plus the cemetery plus closing up the benefits. I'm going to have to, have a sale for my dad's business. I'm going to have to sell my dad's house. That costs money. Property taxes cost money, right? And so if you own a home and you have property taxes, right? Like, it costs money to maintain it before your kids can even sell it. Like, people lose assets because they don't protect them. And so life insurance is the easiest way, I think, because I can take out a policy and designate who I want to be my beneficiary and what they call a contingent beneficiary. Like right now I have my sister and my dad and my mom. And let's say my sister, passes away, then I can change it to my other sister. But it designates who gets the money, so they're not fighting over the money. So have you ever, as an attorney, gone to fighting over money?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, a lot, unfortunately. So not so much that I'm not litigating anymore. I did that early in my practice. So not so much now, because we really work to keep families at peace with planning. And so, but yeah, money does bring out, sometimes doesn't bring out the best in people at all.
Right. And a lot of times, how often does it take to get access to money?
You figure first you wait for a death certificate, 2 to 3 weeks, unless you expedite it. I didn't realize you could do that, but you can get it very fast. And then you have to send it to the insurance company. Then you got to fill out paperwork, and then you got to wait for the insurance company to send you a check. So you might get money in a couple of months, if you're lucky.
Now, what if someone didn't do any estate planning with you, Kim, and they had all their money in a bank, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and who can touch that money?
Yeah, if there's no beneficiary designations, no one. So now you're looking at things like heirship and administration. And I tell clients, hey, I make a lot more money off you not planning. It's cheaper to plan in your family. I tell people, if you have someone you love, you plan, because, it's just a gift that you can give them.
Exactly the way life insurance is. And it doesn't have to be massive. You could start with something small and something affordable. I call them cremation policies, right? Mm-hmm. Because the last thing you want your loved ones to do is have to call everybody looking for passing the plate around, looking to do fish fries to be able to do your final resting place, especially if they don't have access to your bank account with any money left in it. Like the last thing your family should have to do is, mom's dead, but we have to have a fish fry because we're all broke, and the funeral home wants $5,000 to even take her out of the morgue and this and that, right?
Yeah.
So it's not a happy thought to plan, but when everybody should plan. Like, I've been in crazy accidents. I'm sure many of you have. 4 years ago, I totaled a car that I slammed into. Like, I lost control of the car because the tire blew, and I slammed into the cement barrier on the side of the interstate at 70 miles an hour. And one of the things I was thinking about, Kim, is how is the police going to tell my family in New York? How are they going to find my family? I was thinking about that. I was like, what VA are they going to take me to? Because the VA here is closed because it was COVID. I was like, where are they going to life flight me to? Because I thought I was going to be damaged. And then, is my dad going to find my life insurance policy? And, be able to, is he going to fly me back to New York and bury me there? I didn't know, because I didn't finish making those plans, right? By the way, if you're a veteran, a lot of veterans think that the VA is going to bury them, and that's not the case. As a veteran, we only qualify for the cemetery piece. So we only qualify to be buried in a national cemetery. If you pass from a service-related condition, it's like $796 that they can give one of your beneficiaries, but they have to pay for it out of pocket first to get reimbursed. A lot of veterans think, oh, I'm a veteran, the VA will take care of it. They don't take care of the funeral home part. They don't transport you from the morgue to the funeral home either. They only do the cemetery part, so it can still be costly. You should still have a small final expense policy to cover that expense, if you love anybody.
Yes. So let me ask you one last question.
Sure.
Many people think they have to continue to work until 65 before they can apply for Medicare. Is there an alternative?
Yeah. So before, let's say you're 62 and you're just really struggling and you want to go on retirement. You can qualify before 65. You can qualify for the government's marketplace. So healthcare.gov. You can qualify for a marketplace plan on the open market. I'm an insurance agent that's in the market in 48 states. Everybody except Massachusetts likes me. They're just really hard to work with. But you can choose a marketplace plan, and it's actually sometimes a lot cheaper than Medicare is going to be at 65. So I have folks who are getting $2,000 a month on their Social Security at 62, 63, 64. And they're qualified for plans less than $174, which is Medicare, usually less than $50 for a good plan, And that was one of the policies put in place, in the last 10 years. A lot of people think that health insurance is really, really, really expensive. But if you qualify for what they call a government subsidy based off of income, not assets, just income. I don't care how much money you have in the bank, how many 401ks you have, just your actual income, earned income, you can qualify for a government subsidy. And we find out in seconds just by asking a couple questions if you do.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So Joanna, this has been really, really good information for our listeners today. So if somebody wants to find you, how do they do that?
Yeah. So my office phone number is 470-610-5710. My email is Joanna, that's Joanna, at top flight, FLIGHT, agent, AGENT.com. Or you can also find me on Facebook or LinkedIn, or you can go to my website. It's www.sparkadvisors.com/agents/Joanna-Wyckoff-4777. LinkedIn and Facebook is probably the fastest way to find me. My last name, Wyckoff. It's pretty unique. And so if you need help with your Social Security or VA questions, you can join my Facebook group, Veteran to Veteran Info for Veterans. Be happy to help you. Make sure if you have an aging parent who's a veteran, make sure that they file for their benefits, because those benefits are, authorized by the government, and they're just, if they're not being used, they're not being used, And so save your parents money, especially if they need caregivers with dressing, bathing. A lot of people quit their jobs to help their aging parent when they can get the government to pay for it.
That's perfect. And so, Joanna, this has been phenomenal. Tons and tons of good information today. I just want to thank you so much for being on the show, and we look forward to having you on again soon.
Thanks, Kim.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Life Happens with Kim Hegwood. Be sure to tune in every Thursday at 10 a.m. wherever you listen to your podcasts as we navigate through the challenges that emerge as life happens. The content of this podcast does not establish an attorney-client relationship or constitute attorney-client privilege, legal, medical, financial, or any other professional advice.